If you have type 2 diabetes, you know that your diet is extremely important. You know that there are certain foods that will spike your blood sugar and cause all kinds of problems, and you'll have to take extra medication to get your sugar under control. So as a general rule, there are certain foods and categories of foods that you must avoid pretty much 100% if you can, if you have type 2 diabetes. Because what happens is if you continue to eat these foods and you continue to have these big, high spikes in your blood sugar, it will eventually start to really do damage to your body. Keeping your blood sugars under control is absolutely critical, and your diet is literally the one thing that you have the most control over in terms of controlling your type 2 diabetes. If you control your diet, manage what you eat and what you drink, you will do a lot better. You may even find, if you do really well with your diet and you're exercising, you may even find that you can either lower the dosage of your medications or get off of the medication altogether, which is really awesome. So quickly, in this video, I'm going to go over the 7 worst foods or food categories for type 2 diabetics. Number 1 is soda. This should be obvious. Regular soda with all the sugar in it is just, it's just terrible. Like you can't drink it at all if you have diabetes. You really need to eliminate it completely. Some people will ask about diet sodas, but that still has sugar in it. It's just an artificial sweetener. And the artificial sweeteners are really not any better than the sugar in the regular sodas, and may even be worse in some ways in terms of what those artificial sweeteners do to your body. So no soda. I don't care if it's diet soda or regular soda. Just if you have type 2 diabetes, no soda of any kind. Okay. Number 2 is potato chips. That should be fairly self-explanatory. Potato chips have a lot of fat, but they also have sugar, salt, and just all kinds of, they have a lot of oil in them, cooking oil. They're just no good. For really nobody should eat potato chips, but if you have type 2 diabetes, you really should not eat potato chips at all. And French fries are number 3. That's related to potato chips, but obviously a bit different. And again, same problem. French fries are starchy, fatty, oily, salty, just no good. No, really, again, really for anybody. But if you have type 2 diabetes, you have to be even more careful. The 4th category, white pasta, white bread, and white flour. So anything that's made with white flour. I don't care what it is, if it's pasta, if it's bread. It'll say enriched white flour in the ingredient list if you look at it. Anything with enriched processed flour is no good for pastas, breads, or baked goods. Wheat flour is less of a problem. It's just that a lot of times they process it, even with wheat flour, a lot of times it's processed and enriched. So you have to be a little bit careful with that. But as long as it's not white pasta, white bread, white flour, that'll really help you out with managing your blood sugars, okay? Number 5 is fruit juice and processed smoothies. So let me explain this a little bit. So if you're eating, an apple a day, an actual apple, not apple juice, that's great. But if you're drinking apple juice or any other kind of processed juice that's in a bottle, it's just a bad idea, because what they do when they process it, there's hardly any real juice in there, and it's mostly artificial products and a ton of sugar. Same thing with processed smoothies. If you're making a smoothie at home with your own ingredients and your own blender, your own healthy, low sugar process where you're putting green vegetables in there and things like that, that's totally fine. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is processed smoothies like you get at a cafe or a restaurant, or that you find in the frozen food aisle at the grocery store. What's wrong with processed smoothies? They usually add a lot of sugar, and they often add artificial sugary syrups to the mixture to make it taste better, and also to preserve it. So again, bottled fruit juice, processed smoothies, no good if you're a type 2 diabetic. What you can have is regular fruit, especially fruit like apples, in moderation, because regular fruit does have sugar. It's just a healthier sugar that doesn't spike your blood sugar as much. Okay, so regular fruit, whole fruit in moderation, not canned fruit. Canned fruit, you have the same problem. It's usually processed with, they add a bunch of syrup. They add this sugary syrup to it. And that's a no good for anybody, but especially if you have diabetes. Okay, so that covers that. And then, of course, packaged processed foods and sauces. The problem here, packaged foods, it's the same problem we've already talked about. They add all kinds of sugars and preservatives and syrups, and it's just not healthy in a lot of cases. And then sauces, you'd be surprised how much sugar is in barbecue sauce or soy sauce or any packaged processed sauce that you might be eating. If you look at the sugar content, you're going to be shocked at how much sugar they put in these sauces. So packaged processed foods and sauces, you have to minimize your intake as much as possible. And then the number 7 and last of the most critical foods to avoid for type 2 diabetics is anything with high fructose corn syrup. This goes back to what I've already talked about with the syrups in the smoothies and the fruit juices and the sauces and the processed foods. Just anything with these sugary syrups, high fructose corn syrup, and even if it just says corn syrup, again, it's just not good for you. It's not good for anybody. It's especially not good if you have diabetes. Okay, so this is not an exhaustive list. There are other things that could be added here, but these are some of the most common, some of the most frequently eaten food categories that can cause you a lot of problems if you are a type 2 diabetic and you want to lower your medication, you want to manage your blood sugars, you want to get healthier. You really need to stick with whole grains, whole fruits that are not processed, that are not canned. You can't have the packaged fruit juice like I talked about. And you have to stick with your meat in moderation, and lots of vegetables. Vegetables are your friend when you are a type 2 diabetic, but just make sure it's not a salad that's drowning in salad dressing, because what's going to be in the salad dressing? High fructose corn syrup, sugar, way too much salt. So even if you're having salad, you have to be careful, because you can't have, you have to be very careful with what is in the dressing. And a lot of low-fat dressings have far more sugar than the regular dressings. Okay, so make sure you take a look at that as well. All right, so if you can manage these food categories and minimize the intake, you will have a much easier time managing your blood sugar, you will be much healthier, and you will live longer.